There comes a moment in every seeker's journey when the external world stops being the source of truth, and the gaze turns inward. At first, awakening feels like a series of realizations, flashes of insight, emotional breakthroughs, and the shedding of old identities. But the final phase of awakening is something entirely different. It is not an event, it is not a moment. It is the profound understanding that you are not a separate observer walking through the world. You are the field in which the world unfolds. You begin to sense that life has never been something happening to you. Life has always been expressing itself through you. Your thoughts, your emotions, your intuitions, none of them are random or isolated. They are movements within a greater field of consciousness, and you are that field. The boundary you once protected dissolves, and what remains is a quiet, unshakable recognition. The one who sees, the one who experiences, and the space in which everything happens are the same. In this phase, you no longer chase meaning. You generate it. You no longer seek signs. You embody them. You no longer search for purpose. You radiate it effortlessly. You realize that every person you meet, every challenge you face, every desire you carry, is not separate from you. They are expressions of the same field rising in different forms. Awakening stops feeling like a mountain you are trying to climb, and instead becomes a mirror reflecting what was always there, your infinite nature. Fear loosens its grip because you understand that change is not a threat, it is simply the field reorganizing itself. Loneliness dissolves because you see that there is no other, only different faces of the same consciousness. You stop trying to control life because you finally understand you are life. And when you enter this final phase, something extraordinary happens. You no longer awaken for yourself alone. Your presence awakens others. Your clarity becomes a map. Your authenticity becomes a permission slip. Your courage becomes a ripple that expands far beyond your physical existence. This is the final phase of awakening, when you recognize that the light you sought was always coming from within you, because you were the field all along. Awakening begins quietly, often as a subtle discomfort with the surface-level explanations you've been taught to accept. You start questioning the beliefs you inherited, the systems you follow, and the identities you cling to. What once felt certain begins to feel hollow, and the truths you sought outside yourself no longer satisfy the deeper hunger within. At first you search harder. Different teachers, different philosophies, different paths. You look for answers in the world around you, hoping someone or something will reveal what you feel you are missing. But eventually, a deeper realization begins to rise. The answers you seek cannot be given to you by something external, because the source you are searching for is within you. In this phase, awakening shifts from a quest for external truths to the recognition that consciousness itself is not something you visit, it is something you are. You begin to understand that every insight you have ever received did not come from outside. It came from your own field of awareness interpreting the world. Instead of chasing meaning, you start noticing how meaning arises naturally from your own depth. Instead of looking for signs, you begin to see that your intuition has been guiding you all along. Every moment of clarity feels less like learning and more like remembering something you once knew but forgot. As this unfolds, the world stops being a teacher you must follow and becomes a mirror reflecting your own consciousness back to you. Every experience reveals something about your inner landscape. Every reaction you have exposes a deeper truth about your patterns, fears, or desires. Slowly the center of gravity shifts. You stop asking, "What is the world trying to show me?" and begin asking, "What part of me is being revealed through this moment?" The world no longer holds power over your awakening. You become the one shaping how you perceive and respond. This shift brings a profound sense of empowerment, because you finally see that you are not at the mercy of external truths. You are not dependent on validation, approval, or guidance from outside yourself. You become the source of your own clarity. You realize your consciousness is not just participating in reality, it is actively creating the lens through which you experience it. And once you sense this, awakening stops feeling like a path you walk and becomes a state of being that arises from who you truly are. The deeper you move into awakening, the more you begin to notice that the boundaries you believed were real start to soften. At first, you think of yourself as an individual moving through a world filled with separate people, separate events, and separate experiences. But gradually, something shifts in your perception. You begin to see that the line you've drawn between self and life was never as solid as it appeared. The more aware you become, the more you recognize that what you call your experience is not something happening outside of you. It is unfolding within the field of your own consciousness. This realization doesn't arrive loudly. It arrives in moments of stillness, when you notice that everything you perceive is filtered through your awareness. The outside world is no longer just out there. It is reflected in here, shaped by the emotional, psychological, and energetic space you carry. When someone speaks to you, the meaning isn't simply in their words. It is created through your interpretation. When something challenges you, the struggle doesn't exist in the event itself, but in the way it lands within your inner world. Slowly you begin to see that the world you experience is not separate from you. It is a continuous field in which you are both the observer and the observed. As this understanding deepens, the illusion of separation begins to dissolve. You no longer feel like a solitary self defending itself against life. Instead, you sense yourself as the space in which life is happening. The emotions you feel, the thoughts that arise, the interactions you engage in, they all emerge within the same field of consciousness that you are. You realize that you are not a separate entity navigating a foreign environment. You are the environment, the awareness, and the experiencer all at once. This shift brings an extraordinary sense of unity. You feel less resistance toward what occurs because you no longer see challenges as enemies but as movements of the same field you belong to. Judgment fades because you understand that every person you encounter is responding from their own inner field, just as you are. Compassion grows naturally, not because you force it, but because you can no longer perceive others as disconnected from you. In the final phase of awakening, the world stops being an external landscape and becomes an intimate expression of the same consciousness you embody. Life begins to feel very different when you stop seeing it as something that acts upon you and start recognizing it as something that rises from within you. For much of your journey, it's easy to believe that events are being imposed on you from the outside. Circumstances, people, and challenges all appear to be forces you must endure or overcome. But as your awareness deepens, you start to sense a more profound truth emerging beneath the surface. Life is not something separate that comes toward you. It is something that continuously unfolds through your consciousness. Every thought, every feeling, every intuitive pull is part of life expressing itself in a way that is uniquely shaped by the inner landscape you carry. When you begin to see life in this way, the heaviness that once accompanied your struggles starts to soften. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you start asking, "What is moving through me right now?" The question shifts from blame to curiosity, from resistance to understanding. You start to notice that the situations you face often echo the patterns, beliefs, or emotional residues you hold within. Life mirrors your inner world, not to punish you, but to reveal what is ready to evolve, heal, or transform. The challenges you encounter are not random burdens, but expressions of deeper forces within you seeking movement and release. You also start observing how your desires, inspirations, and creative impulses don't come from nowhere. They arise from the deeper layers of your being. They are life pushing itself into form. The longing to grow, to connect, to create, to discover. These are not personal ambitions, but expressions of the universal movement flowing through your individuality. You become less concerned with controlling outcomes and more interested in listening to what life is trying to express through your thoughts, actions, and choices. The pressure to force things diminishes because you recognize that life naturally aligns with the path that resonates most with your inner truth. In this state, even discomfort becomes meaningful. The moments that feel heavy or confusing are still expressions of life, showing you where you have outgrown an old identity or where your energy is trying to shift into a new direction. When you stop resisting what arises, you begin to feel the intelligence behind every experience. Life becomes less of a battle and more of a dialogue. You speak to it through your intentions, and it responds through synchronicities, emotions, and opportunities. A profound sense of harmony begins to develop. You no longer feel like a passive character in a story written by fate. You sense yourself as a co-creator, a participant in a larger flow of consciousness. You realize that the energy moving through you, your dreams, your insights, your pain, your strength, is the very heartbeat of life manifesting in human form. And once you understand this, you stop chasing life and begin allowing it to move through you with greater clarity, trust, and openness. Purpose, meaning, and clarity begin to flow differently when you stop chasing them as distant goals and start recognizing that they emerge from the field of awareness you already are. For so long you may have believed that purpose is something to hunt for, something hidden in a career, a relationship, or a specific path waiting to be discovered. Meaning might have felt like a puzzle you had to solve, and clarity like a reward granted only after enough searching. But as your consciousness expands, a quiet realization begins to form. The very act of chasing pushes these things further away. They cannot be found outside yourself because they originate from the depth of your own being. When you embody the field instead of running after it, your energy shifts from outward effort to inward alignment. You begin to sense that purpose is not a singular mission but a natural expression of your inner state. It arises from how deeply you are connected to yourself, not from how intensely you look for answers. The more grounded you become in your own awareness, the more effortlessly your path reveals itself. What once felt confusing begins to feel intuitive. Decisions that used to drain you start to feel guided, almost self-evident. You stop forcing direction and start responding to what feels alive within you. Meaning emerges in the same effortless way. Instead of attaching significance to external achievements or waiting for validation, you begin to notice meaning in simple moments. Moments where you feel aligned, honest, and present. Meaning becomes less about outcomes and more about congruence. It is found in the resonance between your inner truth and your outer actions. When you embody the field, your life stops being a chase and becomes a continuous expression of who you are becoming. Clarity, too, reveals itself without strain. It comes not from analyzing every possibility, but from listening to the deeper currents moving through you. When your mind is no longer filled with resistance or desperation, your intuition becomes easier to hear. That whisper of inner guidance, the one you used to overlook, becomes your compass. You start to trust it because it arises from a place that feels expansive, calm, and deeply familiar. In this way, the field does not give you purpose, meaning, and clarity as rewards. It expresses them through you as natural extensions of your expanded awareness. The more you settle into your true nature, the more these qualities become the rhythm of your everyday life, not goals you pursue but truths you embody. Fear begins to lose its grip the moment you recognize that change is not a threat, but a natural movement within the field of your own consciousness. For most of your life, change may have felt like something happening from the outside, something unpredictable, disruptive, or destabilizing. You brace yourself against it, try to control it, or attempt to delay it because it feels like it has the power to shake the foundations of who you are. But as awareness deepens, you start to see that what you call change is not an external force at all. It is the field of your inner world reorganizing itself, shifting into new patterns that align more closely with your evolution. This understanding brings a profound sense of relief. Instead of perceiving change as life pulling you away from safety, you begin to see it as life pulling you toward alignment. When relationships shift, when old roles fall away, when familiar structures collapse, these are not signs that something has gone wrong, but signals that your inner landscape has moved into a new configuration. What no longer resonates naturally dissolves, and what matches your next phase begins to rise. Fear fades because you no longer resist the movement. You recognize it as an expression of the intelligence within you. Even unexpected changes begin to feel purposeful. You notice that whenever life rearranges itself around you, something within you has already shifted first. A belief outgrew its usefulness. A part of your identity loosened, a deeper truth emerged, and the external world simply reorganized to reflect that inner transformation. The more you observe this pattern, the more you trust that change is not random chaos but a reflection of your expanding awareness. Fear also softens because change stops feeling personal. You stop seeing it as an attack on your stability and instead view it as a natural ripple within the larger field you belong to. Just as a river adjusts its course when the current grows stronger, your life adjusts its shape as your consciousness grows. There is no punishment in this movement, only momentum, only evolution. In this space, you begin to welcome what once frightened you. You see that each shift carries you closer to your truth. Each ending makes space for a beginning that fits who you are becoming. Each disruption clears the path for clarity. As this recognition settles in your body, fear loses its sharpness, its urgency, its necessity. It no longer feels like a warning but like a shadow dissolving in the presence of deeper understanding. You move with life instead of against it, trusting that every change is simply the field reorganizing itself to carry you into your next unfolding. As awakening deepens within you, it stops being a private inner experience and begins to radiate outward in ways you may not even notice at first. People start responding differently to your presence, not because you are trying to guide or influence them, but because the energy you carry speaks louder than any words could. Your clarity becomes something others can feel. Your calm becomes a refuge in moments when they cannot find their own. Your authenticity gives them silent permission to step into theirs. You become a living reminder that a deeper way of being is possible, and without effort, your presence activates awareness in those around you. This influence does not come from teaching or preaching. It comes from embodiment. When someone is grounded in their truth, others sense it instinctively. They notice the absence of inner chaos. They notice the lack of defensiveness, the ease in your expression, the depth in your listening. Awakening softens your edges, and that softness becomes something others lean toward. They begin to question their own limitations, simply because they witness you moving beyond yours. They begin to explore their own depths, simply because they see you inhabiting yours with confidence and peace. Your choices, too, become a form of guidance, not because you intend them to be, but because they reveal a different way of navigating life. When you respond to challenges without collapsing into fear, others see that resilience is possible. When you pursue what feels aligned rather than what feels safe, others sense that freedom is an option they have ignored. When you treat yourself with compassion, they realize they have been withholding the same kindness from themselves. Your life becomes a quiet demonstration of what awakening looks like in action. Even your silence holds influence. You become more aware, more present, more connected to the moment. People feel seen in your presence, not because you try to analyze them, but because your awareness creates a space in which they can hear themselves more clearly. Your awakening amplifies theirs by giving them room to access their own inner field. Without forcing anything, you become a catalyst for consciousness. This influence extends beyond your immediate interactions. Your energy leaves an imprint. Through your words, your creativity, your boundaries, your honesty, your way of moving through the world. The transformation happening within you ripples outward, touching those who are ready to awaken within themselves. And with time, you realize that your personal awakening has become part of a much larger unfolding, a shared illumination that continues to spread through every life you quietly and naturally inspire. And so, as you stand in this final phase of awakening, you no longer walk as the seeker. You walk as the field itself. You move through the world, not in search of answers, but as a living expression of the answer. You stop trying to become something and begin remembering what you have always been. Every breath you take, every truth you speak, every act of courage you embody becomes part of a larger ripple that awakens the hearts of others. You are no longer here to escape the darkness or chase the light. You are here to be the space in which both can exist without fear. You are here to expand, to illuminate, to lead by the quiet power of your presence. And when you finally recognize this, when you feel it not as an idea but as a lived experience, Something profound settles within you. The journey was never about finding the field. It was about realizing that you were the field all along, vast, open, unbound, and endlessly capable of shaping the reality that flows through you. This is the final phase of awakening. Not an ending, but a beginning, the moment you step fully into who you were always meant to be.